y'all, I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate, and we're bringing you another episode of I'm Moving to North Carolina Now What? So a big question that we get asked as folks are getting prepared to list their home is, why can't I add certain features that I feel like represents my home in MLS? So let's talk about that. What features can you put in MLS, and why do we organize things this way? Well, first of all, there's a couple of big pieces. One is just understanding the back end of how the input process works. This is all that technical stuff, the things that you probably don't want to know too much about, but there are certain parameters that we have to work within. Also, we need to understand how buyers search for homes. So what type of criteria are they using? Is it qualitative or is it quantitative? Are there things that they're actually plugging into a search engine in a tool to help kind of niche down and find your house as a result? And then the other thing is just how features syndicate. Unfortunately, we have a lot of third-party sites that work off of IDX systems. So they take from the MLS and they pump it out to potential buyers. So with that being said, some features just don't syndicate properly because they are labeled differently. So we're literally talking about the way that the coding works, kind of back end again, getting into the tech stuff. But this is why sometimes on those third-party sites, you'll see that a home is in a flood zone, or even that a home is still active and it's sold 3 years ago. So just remember, some of that unreliable data comes from that lack of processing from one site to the other. So first of all, when we look at the MLS features list, there are certain things that we have available to us as features that we can use. Sometimes that kind of is not really up to us. So for example, we did a huge tech overhaul in our MLS probably about a year ago, and one of the new feature rollouts was how a basement was defined. So sometimes you can have features that are actually truncated. And when we're talking about a certain type of foundation, you can have a slab, crawl space, or basement. And so they basically had this set up, they being kind of the technicians that designed this stuff, as basement came first. And then from there, you would decide if it was a crawl space or actual just unfinished storage or potentially finished space. And unfortunately, that allowed in MLS those initial features to show up as, oh, this home has a basement. And unfortunately, it didn't. It just had a crawl space, which is not something you live in. It's not even really meant for storage. So just know that there are certain things on the back end that I'm sure a lot of you have gone to sleep as I was explaining this. This is the type of stuff that we don't always have to explain to sellers because it's not really stuff that you want to get down into, the minutia. But just realize there is a very strict features list that we kind of have to stick to in order to best represent your property. So how do we represent things like a basement if those features are said in a certain way? Well, the description section. So if you've ever pulled up a listing, whether you're shopping through MLS or a third-party site, you'll see this very verbose paragraph that kind of describes the property. That description section is actually where we plug in a lot of your qualitative features. So things that there's not necessarily a box for, but we really want to make sure that it's kind of given to the buyers in a very quick way, because those are features that we don't want you to miss if you don't come in person. There are a lot of buyers that do window shopping. So they look at these, 2D photos and they shop online. They don't live here yet. They can't travel for every single house. So they really depend on the features as well as the description and the photo section to really kind of encompass what the house actually has. So something else that is kind of a hidden feature, and this is why it's so important to work with a licensed agent who has access to our MLS, is there's a documents section. So it's a little button that we can see on our end, and agents can plug in any type of documentation that they feel like best represents the house. A big one is the floor plan. Sometimes you'll see that as one of the photo options, but a lot of times it's a PDF document, which is better anyways, right? Because then you can zoom in and out and really understand the layout of the house. In addition to that, we also have disclosures, surveys, even like deed history, or any type of maybe upgrades and improvements, HOA docs. There's lots of different things that can be housed in that document section that tells you a lot more about the property and whether or not it's a good fit for you and potentially your family. So just know that there are a lot of different things that are accessible to the general public, while also some features that require a licensed agent. And these are also things that you as a seller are not always able to easily access. So before you go live, always ask your agent for a hyperlink to the listing and copies of any documents they plan to use and upload in MLS so they can market your property the best way possible. I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate. If you have any additional questions or comments, feel free to leave those below, and we'll see you next time.